The department within Scientology crime syndicate that Hubbard put in charge of committing crimes was called the Guardian's Office. That name may have been chosen by Hubbard for prosaic reasons, or it may have been chosen because, according to Hubbard in his own diaries, he believed there was a female demon acting as his personal guardian, whom he called the Guardian. In any case, the Guardian's Office was charged with the duty to commit every crime conceivable, from murder all the way down to littering. Many of the policy letters Hubbard wrote to the Guardian's Office dictating how to commit crimes and how to evade justice for those crimes are now in the public domain because the United States Federal Bureau of Investigation seized those documents, and they were placed into evidence against the mob by the federal government when the mob was prosecuted. One of those policy letters mandates the framing of people for imaginary and false crimes they did not commit. Hubbard wrote that his enforcers were to, quote, find or manufacture, unquote, crimes that critics of the mob could be silenced with by framing them. And the crime syndicate has produced many fine examples of making up crimes to frame its critics with. One of the best examples is Paulette Cooper, whom the crime syndicate framed with the crime of making death threats against Henry Kissinger. She was facing prison terms until the FBI discovered documents proving the mob had forged those death threats in her name. Other examples include framing Jim Estebrook for contraband drug possession because he wanted to fund a drug rehabilitation project that would compete against Scientology's fake program, which Hubbard called Narconon. Members of the Guardian's Office placed drugs in Estebrook's car and then called the police on him. Part of the stipulation the mob agreed to after their capos went to prison was the dismantling of the Guardian's Office. The mob has since insisted that the Guardian's Office no longer exists. They are not telling the truth. The mob merely changed the name of the office, which is now called the Office of Special Affairs. OSA still follows all of the Guardian Office's policy letters, as well as continues to commit crimes, all of which Hubbard mandated. Evidence for this is vast. The attempted framing of Jesse Prince for drug manufacturing, wherein the Drug Enforcement Agency kicked in his door and stormed into his apartment with machine guns after they received fraudulent tips by the mob that Prince was a drug maker. That is just one fine example. The mob had placed a sickly little tiny marijuana plant on his back porch and then called the cops on him. The judge in that case asked the Florida Attorney General to indict and prosecute the Scientology mob for the crimes it had committed while trying to frame Jesse Prince for those crimes. Amazingly, the Attorney General declined, even though the office had sworn testimony about a great many felonies the mob had committed while trying to frame Jesse Prince. It is amusing to note that when Scientology mob sent a woman whore into the hotel bar to frame Mr. Prince, he told her to get lost. The Scientology mob then sent in a male whore to try again. Good bloody gods, that's funny. Prince sent the second whore packing also. Here is a clip of Jesse Prince answering a bull-baiting question asked of him by an OSA member in Boston. Jesse was asked the nonsensical question of why he drank alcohol before showing up at the protest.
Jesse, how come you drank before you came here?
Because I wanted to make sure my dick would be hard to shove in your ass.
Is that what makes you high, drinking?
Yeah, tell it.
Another example of OSA framing human rights activists for imaginary crimes is Bob Minton. They managed to frame him twice for imaginary batteries.
Are you a fucking nothing? Are you a Ron droid? Are you a Ron droid? You know, you got nothing, you little motherfucker. You know nothing, man. You don't know nothing about my religion. You don't know.
In both cases, Minton was found by juries to be not guilty of the crimes. In fact, in the first attempt, the videotape clearly shows Minton being the one assaulted. As one can clearly see in this image, taken by one of several cameras working during the Boston protest. In the second attempt, the video clearly shows the fake victim throwing himself at Minton's feet and then passing out. The mob then called the cops and had Minton hauled away for battery that the video clearly shows did not happen. The video also clearly shows the fake victim laying on the sidewalk as a police officer walked over to him. The police officer demanded identification of the unconscious victim. Smirk. The unconscious victim instantly regained consciousness, handed over his driver's license, and then passed out unconscious again. When that video was showed at the trial, the jury twittered with humor. The list of names of people the Scientology crime syndicate has framed for imaginary crimes or have tried to but failed is very long. To name a few, Keith Henson was successfully framed for a crime in which a lawyer for the Italian mafia sat at the desk of the prosecutor and whispered instructions to the prosecutor. Oddly enough, the prosecutor quit his job after that trial and has apparently vanished. Mr. Xenu TV himself, Mark Bunker, had been framed by the crime syndicate for many imaginary crimes. In Chicago, 2 thugs rushed out of the Scientology brainwashing center and battered Mr. Bunker, taking his camera away and then arresting him for criminal trespassing. It was later learned that the 2 thugs were Chicago police officers who had been paid by the mob to arrest Bunker when he showed up. The camera that had been filming Mr. Bunker being battered by the police, and which showed he was not trespassing, was confiscated by those 2 police officers. When the camera was returned, the film within had been taken out of the camera by the police and lost. Witnesses testified that Mr. Bunker was assaulted and battered by those police officers, and that Mr. Bunker had not been trespassing. The jury took only a few minutes to find Mr. Bunker not guilty. Amazingly, even though witnesses testified under oath that the 2 police officers had criminally battered Mr. Bunker and then committed perjury in court under oath, neither police officers has been indicted for those crimes. Graham Berry, Gerry Armstrong, Ida Camburn, Michael Pattinson, Mark Plummer, Lawrence Wollersheim, Tory Bezazian, Ms. Christmas, and a great many more people all have been subject to the mob's policy of making up crimes to frame human rights activists and victims of the crime syndicate to shut them up. That policy is still in force today.